During the financial crisis, there were investors and owners of systemic large banks that were bailed out, and we're certainly not looking, and the reforms that have been put in place means that we're not going to do that again. But we are concerned about depositors and are focused on trying to meet their needs.
There you have it from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen talking about they're trying to meet depositors' needs from the banks that have just failed. What happens if they don't meet their needs? What's going to happen? Is there going to be a big bank run? We'll see tomorrow how the Federal Reserve decides to play this. The government? What do you think? What's going to happen? Is it going to be a bank run? And there you have it from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She's talking about what the Federal Reserve is going to do next. And what she's stating is she's ruling out a bailout for the Silicon Valley Bank. We're not going to do that again. So this is what the Treasury Secretary is saying. Like in 2008 when they bailed the banks out, she's saying we're not going to do that again. We'll see if she stands on this. Meanwhile, you see Michael Saylor commenting on this, and he's stating that Bitcoin will never need a bailout. You can't print any more of it. You can't create any of it. You can't delete it. Bitcoin is a non-fungible, scarce asset that is going to become more and more scarce over time. And then Will Clemente commenting saying the Fed bailing out banks that are failing while we're 12 months out from the next halving with a potential for a grayscale spot ETF approval, surprise in between, couldn't have been a better written script for Bitcoin. So does this surprise you? Did you know about the spot ETF? Well, judges will likely rule in favor of grayscale in the Bitcoin spot ETF battle with the SEC. This is coming from a Bloomberg expert. And why is this happening? During the initial hearing at the District of Columbia's Court of Appeals last week, Bloomberg Intelligence Elliot Stein says that Grayscale mainly argued that the SEC is inconsistent in applying the standards after approving Bitcoin futures ETF while denying the spot ETFs. And the SEC's argument that even though there's 99.9% correlation between the prices in the spot market and the future market, they're not convicted that fraud in the spot market would show up the same way in the futures market. They never really clarified what that meant, but then Grayscale needed to provide more empirical evidence of how fraud in the spot market might manifest in the futures market. And the judge pushed back and saying, why do they have to show this? Why is it not enough that the prices are correlated so extensively? And in addition to that, what type of empirical evidence do they need to show? So coming out of this, it looks like Grayscale is favored now, giving them a 70% chance to win a ruling from the court that vacates the SEC's order rejecting their application. Is a spot ETF in the cards for Bitcoin? And meanwhile, there's multiple bank stock trading that have been halted due to volatility. This is something historic that's happening. We're less than a year out from the Bitcoin halving, and you're seeing bank stocks be halted on the New York Stock Exchange. And the IMF has a warning. They're warning the G20 that widespread crypto use would impact banks. And then they're stating banks may lose deposits and have a curtailing lending. This is what they reported to the G12 nations, that proliferation of crypto assets would lead to banks losing deposits. So if you're not paying attention to this, then once again, you're living under a rock, but this could impact you most definitely if your banking institution is impacted. So that's why the Bitcoin bros have been here telling you to buy Bitcoin, because this is the reason why Bitcoin was created back in the 2008 financial crisis. When the Federal Reserve bailed out the big banks, this is why Bitcoin exists. And Max Kaiser's weighing in on this, saying SVB never existed. It's all gone. All banks in America are accounting phantasms, fiat holograms, delusions of grandeur haunting the world's economy. Faith has long since left the building. We trade worthless paper for food, medicine, contracts, infections, and weed for nothing. Dollar has no value. Bitcoin is that true value. Don't forget this. And while this is happening, we're seeing some of the biggest bank failures in US history while Bitcoin's pumping at the current time of this tweet 23.5, but as you'll see, Bitcoin's trying to push over 24. We'll see what it is before the end of this recording. And with that, what's happening, Crypto Crew? Sean's coming back at you, another cryptocurrency video, continuing and getting straight into it. We're seeing some updates from Trading Shot, and you see here, this is gold versus the dollar and Bitcoin versus the dollar. And gold seems to be leading what Bitcoin does. Gold topped first in August of 2020, Bitcoin topped second. And then comes down, gold comes down and bottoms first. What's Bitcoin do? Bottom second. So if there's any indication of what's to come, we see gold ran up over this bear cycle support. So bare minimum, Bitcoin should be getting back up over that $29,000 threshold in the weeks and months to come. And from El Crypto Prof, 2019 versus 2023, right here you put in a lower high, a higher high, dump, 2019, lower high, higher high, dump. But look what happens next. Over the next few months, a blast off. Over the next few months, a blast off. This goes hand in hand with what we just showed you from the chart from Trading Shot. Meanwhile, we see the Bitcoin dominance is ripping to the upside. We look at this, Bitcoin dominance is almost up to 45%, but also look at the super guppy indicator. This is on the weekly. It's getting ready to flip green, which is definitely an extremely bullish indication for Bitcoin versus the alts. If we look at the 3-day, the 3-day already flipped green. So this is definitely bullish. The last time the 3-day flipped green, you see what happened. Bitcoin went up another 45%. And if we do that now, another 45% would take Bitcoin back up over 60%. So keep this in mind. So what does it mean to be Bitcoin wealthy? It means owning smaller and smaller amount of Bitcoins over time. In 2010, in order for you to be Bitcoin wealthy, you had to have over 100,000 Bitcoins. Present day, if you're Bitcoin wealthy, you have over 100 Bitcoins. But as time progresses, and those Bitcoins become more and more scarce, by 2026, it's 10 Bitcoins. By 2030, 1. Fast forward another 12 years, 0.001. The next 10, 20 years, Bitcoin is going to become more and more scarce with every halving cycle that passes. Keep this in mind. And we'll leave you with this. This is the Bitcoin versus the US dollar on the 3-day. At the current time it's recording, we did break 24,000, 24.2K at the current time it's recording. Bitcoin has had this major wick to the upside. We're showing the super guppy once again on the 3-day. It has not flipped green in the US dollar conversion, but today we've had a wick over 20%. Now, the major thing is, as the days progress, will this hold and will this flip green? That's what we have to pay attention to. But all in all, Bitcoin, despite all of the banking failures and what's going on in the macro environment, doesn't care. Yeah, Bitcoin doesn't care. It's going off to the races. So we'll see if this holds. We'll be watching the charts closely. The Bitcoin bros will be here for you. What do you think? Is Bitcoin going to stay over 24,000? Is the bull run back? What's the next 2 years like for crypto? Will Bitcoin hit that $100,000 threshold after the 2024 halving? Let us know your thoughts.